This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, January 15th, 2007, and this is episode number 205 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hochberg from MGMstudios.org. On the show today is Len Testa, co-author of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome, Len.
How's it going, Matt?
Outstanding. And live from somewhere in deep New Hampshire, it's Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
Your enchanted lights await.
Len, where's that from?
Oh, that is from Spectrum Magic.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. I thought that was your big that was your boy. That was your binky.
I like
Your binky.
Yeah, I love it. I just don't remember that lyric. I don't know.
Call yourself a geek?
At least we don't, but whatever.
We call him something else, but that's
Yeah,
another
exactly.
story.
Also on the show, not jumping down my throat early on, is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
You are no geek, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know geeks. I have lived with geeks.
You are no
I grew
friend,
up
you
with
geek.
You are no Greek geek.
Sloth of Chung. On today's show, we're talking about the cardinal rules for successful touring, and these are rules to live by when going to the parks and doing a good job of it. So the first one, Mike, why don't you start us off?
Well, the first one is to it really comes down to planning. You need to know well before you even get to the park that you're going to, what you really want to see. You need to have in your mind some type of a virtual list of which attractions or shows or whatever that really mean the most to you, and which ones you would like to make sure that you don't miss. And obviously, when we're talking about any kind of attractions in Disney theme parks, you're thinking about the super headliners, the attractions that everybody looks forward to seeing. So, for instance, in the Animal Kingdom right now, we're talking Expedition Everest. If you're talking Epcot, you're talking Soarin'. If you're looking at MGM Studios, it has to be Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, maybe the Great Movie Ride. And if you're looking at what did I leave out? Magic Kingdom is really tough because there's so many in there. But I'm guessing the Three Mountains, and lately probably Pirates and Haunted Mansion seem to be real popular. So you need to know ahead of time which ones you're going to go to, and then knowing what you're going to see, then you need to plan how you're going to go about doing it. I would say that what you need to do is try to figure out which of those that you want to see are the most popular, and probably want to head for that one first, and then work your way down. But I guess that's the first rule of thumb, Matt, is to know ahead of time, maybe even the day before you go, what you're going to do before you actually go through the turnstile. Once you have that set in your mind, it will be a lot easier, rather than you get in there, you start looking at the map, you say, okay, what do you want to do? You don't want to hesitate, you want to know ahead of time. So that's rule number one.
I like to, in addition to that, Mike, I like to know what I want to do, and almost, perhaps even more importantly, I like to know what I don't want to do. So I can, eliminate it and narrow down my choices so I can better... I like to, plan things out and know, kind of a sequence for the first, hour or two of what I'm interested in doing, getting those main attractions out of the way.
Yeah, meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes would be your first, and then anything else is gravy after that.
Absolutely. Len?
Always comes back to food.
Speaking of food, Len?
Yeah, I mean, the first hour you want to try to avoid... You want to avoid eating the first hour, if possible. If you're really tight for time, like if you only got a day in the parks, you want to make sure you have a decent breakfast, ahead of time. So part of knowing what you want to do is knowing that you have to probably grab something beforehand. It's not so much bad with adults, although I don't think you want to be touring the park with me while I don't have coffee. But for kids, you don't want kids to start getting cranky, 45 minutes or 60 minutes into your trip.
Okay, so you tack on a happy crew before anything else, and then knowing exactly what your happy crew wants to do to keep them happy.
So the first day of the last Mouse Fest, I had actually gone 24 hours without coffee, and no, I didn't see you guys for dinner. It was Fred, our statistician. It took conscious effort on my part to walk, to actually take steps. My head was hurting so much. from the caffeine withdrawal. I got to have coffee in the morning, so.
Huh, interesting. Let's move on.
Interesting, addict.
That's terrific, Glenn.
That's terrific. Glenn needs help.
Now, the second cardinal rule of successful touring is arriving early. Len, why don't you start us off there?
Yeah, so especially in the Magic Kingdom and at the Animal Kingdom, it's really, really important. And I think we've quoted these statistics a few times on the podcast, but for the Magic Kingdom during summer, for example, every minute that you wait to arrive at the parks after it's opened results in 2 more minutes of waiting throughout the day. So, and that's assuming you execute a perfect touring plan the time you get in. So, for example, if you showed up at 9:30 and the park opened at 9, that 30 minutes that you slept in or were late would result in a 60 extra minutes of waiting in line, and that's assuming you had perfect knowledge about exactly where to go to minimize your waiting time from that point on. Now, obviously, most people don't have perfect knowledge of how to tour the parks at 9:30 versus 9. So really, it's actually worse than that. But I think the point we want to make is that a couple minutes here and a couple minutes there, very early in the morning, losing a few minutes here and a few minutes there, it compounds the problem as the morning goes on because you're falling farther and farther behind on each attraction because there are more and more people on those initial attractions. Really getting there early for the Magic Kingdom is absolutely critical if you've got a limited amount of time to see the attractions.
Absolutely.
Hey, Len, on Extra Magic morning hours, what type of a impact does it have when you delay every minute on those mornings? Is it more than 2 minutes?
It's a good question. You mean if you're getting in at 8:30 instead of 8?
Yeah.
No, not quite so much because you have a limited number of people. Obviously, not everyone can get admitted to the park during Extra Magic Hour, so they're not. It's not quite as bad. One of the interesting things we noted for Dumbo during Extra Magic Hour, though, is Dumbo can only hold. It's got 16 Dumbos in it, and it can hold 4 people per pop. So its hourly capacity is like 700 people. So again, during busier times of the year, every minute the park is open, the wait time increases 90 seconds, up to through almost through the first hour. So after 15 minutes, you're looking at like a 23 or 24 minute wait for Dumbo. 15 minutes after the park opens, there's just the demand swamps the capacity of the attraction.
It's about what it's about, and it's like having pole position. If you're
it's sort of like that. Yeah, it's.
I mean, it just behooves you to be in that. I mean, you don't have to be the first person through the gate and the first person on every attraction, but certainly being the first group on is gonna being on hand by 8:30 if it's a regular day, is much better than arriving at 9 o'clock to the park.
Yeah, and another reason why that's true, a good point, Matt, is that when this is a great point actually. Good job bringing this up.
Woohoo! Go me.
At the Magic Kingdom, if it starts to get crowded between the turnstiles and the security gate, they'll actually let the first group of people through the turnstiles and into that little queuing area in front of the train station. Scopy, you know where that's at, right?
Yep.
So those people then, when the park opens, they don't have to wait behind all of the people who need to do the finger scans. Right. They just walk through the park. So that initial first group of maybe a couple thousand people have a huge advantage on everyone else because by the time the other people are through the turnstiles, the first group is all the way down Main Street.
Yeah.
So that's a huge advantage, especially for those. Again, to get on that, you could be in and off of Space Mountain in 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're in that first group, whereas people are just walking towards it, you're already on ride number 2.
Yeah.
And like you said, Len, it's not I mean, even if you're in the back of that group, I mean, you're still gonna ride Space Mountain, and you'll be done with it when maybe another 10 minutes later after that, or whatever it may be. But you're now it adds up later on. It's a snowball effect.
Right, exactly, and it does snowball because you're 2 minutes behind on the first attraction or 5 minutes behind on the first attraction, then you're 10 minutes behind on the second. I mean, nothing illustrates this better than the Fantasyland attractions. So imagine showing up 15 minutes after 9 on Dumbo. We've already said that your in Fantasyland. We've already said that your wait's going to be 20 minutes on Dumbo, but it's only going to get worse for the rest of the day, right? So if you know this, right, here are your choices. You get to the park 15 minutes after it opens. You're in Fantasyland. Your choice is 25 minutes on Dumbo now, or 45 minutes to an hour later.
Yep.
So, and then you have to start having some strategy, because it's like, do I take my losses on Dumbo and go do Pooh and Pan and maybe Snow White and get those out of the way while they're still relatively low and take my chances, half an hour from now? Or do I bite the bullet here, hope that those three attractions, since they're relatively continuous loaders, can handle crowds at least for the next hour?
Oh, really?
That's when unless you've got a chart with historical park hours and a pretty quick aptitude with math, you're not going to be able to do all the number crunching.
Yep. It adds up very quickly, and like you said, sometimes, especially when you if you're not as early as you can be, you start gambling with your time.
Yeah.
Just like you said, well, let's try this, and sometimes it works
the
out.
choices just get overwhelming so quickly. I mean.
Yeah, and you just say, forget it. Let's just.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, well, let's just do the simplest thing, or the thing that's the least walking, or
Yep.
Whereas had you been 15 minutes earlier, it's like a whole different game plan. Then you're like, well, you've got all the, all the big rides out of the way. Once you get Dumbo out of the way, really, in Fantasyland, and maybe one or two of the, Pooh or Pan.
Yeah, Pan.
It's over. I mean, your day's done. I mean, I was telling Don this when we were in December. We had, in the Magic Kingdom, we had Fast Passes for Space, we had ridden Big Thunder twice, and we had gone on Splash all before 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, 9:10. It was like, well, the day's over. I mean, there's no point in rushing after that, because what was left? Pirates. It was a walk-on. And by the way, the right side was faster than the left. I actually checked by like a huge margin. There must have been something wrong with the left side.
Huh. Interesting.
But at that point, it's like it's 9:10, 9:20, and that unless something catastrophic happens, you've seen everything you want to see in the park, and you're just coasting. So you work hard for 70 minutes, and the rest of the day is just a breeze. I don't see why more people don't do that.
What?
You know why? Americans have a problem with delayed gratification, but that's a whole separate podcast.
Yeah. I love my instant gratification, thank you.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And we want ramen noodles. We don't want to make soup,
That's right. Yeah, you know it. You want everything now. Pictures, everybody. You want everything now. So again, to reiterate, the first step for successful touring, the cardinal rules for successful touring is determine in advance what you want to see, arriving early, and Mr. Newell, what is our third rule?
The third rule is avoiding bottlenecks, which if anybody drives to work on a daily basis, I'm sure you come in contact with at the bridges and tunnels. I know we all do.
Not Scopa, but...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He doesn't have a
He
job.
drives to the living room.
He's kind of the Kramer of this show. He kind of just shows up and...
What does he do?
Cosmo Scopa. Giddy up.
Go ahead, Noel.
Well, one of the things I do to avoid a bottleneck is I tend to eat lunch at a different time than everyone else does, because if everyone goes to lunch around noon, guess what? You're going to run into a bottleneck when you get to the restaurant, especially the counter service ones.
Absolutely.
So I like to eat either earlier than that, or if I have my chocolate cake, then I'll eat later than that.
No, I agree with you, Noel. I like eating lunch at about 11 and having dinner at like 4.
Yeah.
I think that you're setting yourself up for easy time with crowds.
Exactly.
We actually counted this at the Magic Kingdom fast food places last year, and the peak dining time, like the most crowds for Pick of Spells and Cosmic Rays, were 12:30 to 1:30. And which is interesting because you figure, I don't know about you guys, but I usually eat lunch like between 11:30 and 12 every day.
Yeah, that's about where I eat it.
And it's a little bit later in the Magic Kingdom, and the only thing I can think of for that is that people are coming from all different time zones, and everyone's internal clocks are all wacky. Especially if you're coming from Central Time, it is 11:30.
That could be it. I never attributed it. I just
No,
attributed
maybe.
it just to people who are, don't get hungry until a certain time.
Maybe.
Now I know one thing that Mike Scopa does. Mike, I'll let you explain it. Is you use the Kiss Goodnight? It has like a double effect. I mean, you certainly enjoy it, but that's a great way of avoiding a bottleneck. Probably one of the worst bottlenecks of trying to leave the Magic Kingdom.
Oh yeah, well I can remember one time I was on a solo trip and I remember sitting at, I think it's called Center Street in the Magic Kingdom, and just trying to gauge as to how many people were passing me after Wishes, and it was just Fantasy in the Sky, whatever it was at that time. And it's just amazing. So what I do is, as soon as Wishes is over, I try to make my way towards the Upper Rose Garden, and I just stay in there and let people go, and I wait for Kiss Goodnight. And I usually don't leave the Magic Kingdom until maybe at least an hour after the end of Wishes, because I just don't want to deal with the bottleneck for the monorail or for the boats or whatever. And at one time I actually beat everybody by walking over to the Contemporary and taking the monorail from the Contemporary to the TTC. That's one
It's
way.
a nice
I
walk,
avoid it.
especially at night too. I mean, there's just something
Yeah.
about the Magic Kingdom at night. Of course, there's always the opportunity in Epcot to just stare at the little lights embedded in the sidewalk. I mean, that's
Well, you know,
good.
what's
That's a
good
good
about
40
that,
minutes
Len,
right
is that what's good about that is that when you go out to the parking lot, there's only one car in the parking lot.
exactly. That's me over there.
Dude, the lights.
Dude, they're talking to me. Look.
Newell puts on his Rush album, and it's also. That's it for us today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the Walt Disney World Today website at wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions@wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, and Mike Newell, I'm Matt Hotchberg. We'll see you on the next show.